They say rebirth is a blessing. But when I opened my eyes that morning in my childhood home in Sacramento, California, I didn't feel blessed, I felt aware. The familiar sound of pots clanking in the kitchen, the faint scent of bacon and cinnamon toast, everything felt normal. Too normal, but as I sat up in bed, ran my fingers along my neck, and stared at my hands, I knew I was back. Back to the day I ruined my life for someone who never deserved it. My mom's voice called from the hallway. "Teresa, sweetie, come help set the table. Uncle Gary and the rest of the family will be here any minute." The exact same words, same tone, same trap. I stumbled out of bed, still stunned, still processing, and walked out with a blank face to the backyard sink to wash dishes. My body moved on autopilot. My mind, though it was racing. This was the day my cousin Crystal Sanders would volunteer to help Uncle Gary by offering to loan him money. Only, she wouldn't actually hand over a penny. She would turn to me, make big innocent eyes, and say, "Teresa, could you transfer it for me? I left my card at home." Back then, I transferred $150,000 from my savings. I was called a good girl. She was called a saint, and weeks later, no one returned the money. Uncle Gary said he borrowed it from Crystal. Crystal swore I offered the money myself. My name, my bank account, and still, I was erased from the story. I had no written proof, just shame and silence. But not this time. When they arrived, I sat quietly at the edge of the table, sipping orange juice, watching faces I once thought were family. Uncle Gary cleared his throat halfway through dinner. "So? I hate to ask this, but anyone here able to help with a little cash? Evan's wedding is coming up, and we're short about $150,000 for the ceremony." The table fell quiet. Crystal took a long, dramatic breath and smiled. "Uncle Gary, how much did you say again?" He looked hopeful. 15,000. Crystal gasped lightly. "Oh wow, I'd love to help, but I didn't bring my card with me today." Then, right on cue, she turned to me. "Teresa, babe, could you transfer it for me? I'll send it back to you in a couple of days." She even winked like we were still in on some joke together. Back in my old life, I would have nodded. I would have transferred the money, smiling like an obedient fool. But this Teresa, I leaned forward with a warm smile. I'd love to help Uncle Gary, but I just loaned a friend a large sum earlier this week, so I'm kinda tapped out. Crystal's smile froze. "But," I continued casually, "Crystal mentioned she got a bonus recently. Over $200,000, if I remember correctly, right?" Everyone turned to Crystal. Uncle Gary's eyes widened. "You did? That would be amazing, honey." Crystal stammered, "What? That's not." Before she could make up a lie, I stood up, walked to her purse sitting by the couch, and exactly as I remembered, entered the 4-digit code I knew she used for everything. 917. Unlocked. I opened her banking app. Alipay, just like before. $230,460 stared back at me. I held the screen up toward the table. "Looks like she's more than capable." Crystal's face turned ghost white. Uncle Gary and his wife looked like they'd just won the lottery. "Well, if you have it," he said awkwardly, "you'd be helping us a lot." Crystal fumbled with her phone, probably calculating which lie would do the least damage. But it was too late. I leaned back in my chair. Crystal's always been generous. I'm sure she'd be happy to help. Within minutes, $150,000 was transferred to Uncle Gary, and just like in the past, he reached over and took my hand. "Thank you, Teresa," he said tearfully. "You're truly a blessing to this family. Evan's gonna treat you like a queen." But this time, I didn't smile back, because this time, the fool wasn't me. Crystal barely touched her food after that. She grabbed her purse and muttered something about needing to leave early. Her mom, my aunt, hurried after her. And me, I checked my phone. My bank account was untouched. I still had my money, my dignity, my control. Crystal would never know what hit her. And that was just the beginning. If the universe had a sense of humor, I was finally in on the joke. A week after the family loan incident, Crystal came knocking, literally and figuratively. She showed up at my condo with a plastic container of homemade cookies, store-bought, of course, and a favor hidden behind her bright fake smile. "Teresa," she chirped, stepping into my living room without asking, "remember Ashley? My college bestie. She's in kind of a tough spot right now." Ashley Bloom, the human hurricane. The same girl who, in my last life, lived in my brand new condo rent-free for 2 years and turned it into a landfill. Her mom got sick, and she sent all her savings back home. Got evicted. "Nowhere to go," Crystal added, placing the cookies on my coffee table like some kind of peace offering. "You still have that little condo near Midtown, right?" She said it like it was a spare sock. In my past life, I said yes. In this life, I smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, I sold it last week." Crystal blinked. "Sold it without telling anyone." "It was time," I shrugged. "Market's hot, got a great deal." Her smile twitched. I watched her gears spin, recalibrating. Then came the next play. "What about this place? Could Ashley stay here for just a week or two?" I nearly laughed. "With me, and Mom and Dad in and out every other day?" I raised an eyebrow. "You do realize we only have 2 bedrooms here, right?" Crystal faltered. Right. What she didn't know was that I had planned this months ago. In the life that came before, Ashley moved into my Midtown condo using the spare key I foolishly kept under the welcome mat. Crystal had told her it was fine and never even asked me. By the time I came back from a work trip, Ashley was lounging in my living room in an oversized hoodie, Netflix on, dishes stacked in the sink, and a cat I'd never seen before climbing my bookshelf. She de-trashed the place. Walls smeared, curtains stained, cigarette butts in the kitchen, even though it was supposed to be a smoke-free building. And Crystal? She shrugged it off. "She's just going through a rough time. Be generous, Teresa." I ended up spending over $120,000 fixing what she destroyed. Not this time. Crystal stood in the entryway, fidgeting. Okay, I'll take her in then. "I just thought, we could all help each other." "Oh, you're such a good person," I said, patting her on the arm. "Ashley's lucky to have you." She left with tight lips and fake grace. I shut the door and exhaled. One crisis dodged. One burden shifted back to where it belonged. 2 weeks later, I got a message from a mutual acquaintance with a photo. Crystal's brand new condo, one she had boasted about endlessly, looked like a dumpster exploded in it. Ashley had officially moved in. Trash piled in corners. Someone had spray-painted a smiley face on the living room wall. A cat, maybe the same one, was curled up on her brand new white couch, claws sunk deep into the cushion. Another photo came in. Crystal standing in the middle of the chaos, holding a bottle of Lysol, crying. I almost felt bad. Almost. That night, I made a cup of chamomile tea, sat on the balcony, and scrolled through the images again with quiet satisfaction. The universe doesn't forget. It just waits. A few days later, Crystal stormed into my cubicle at work like a tornado in stilettos. "Teresa," she hissed, glancing around to make sure no one was listening, "why did you tell Ashley I had room for her? She's wrecking my place. The walls are turning black. She brought men into my apartment." I blinked slowly. "I didn't tell her anything. You brought her in. You told me you wanted to help her, remember? You could have warned me." "Oh, so you didn't know your best friend is filthy, disrespectful, and shameless. That's news to me." Crystal looked like she might scream. I leaned closer and whispered, "You didn't mind when she did all that to my condo. But now that it's yours, suddenly she's unbearable. Weird how that works." She stared at me like she didn't recognize who I was anymore. "Good. I can't kick her out," she muttered. "She has nowhere to go, and she knows I owe her." "Maybe next time," I said sweetly, "you'll think twice before playing savior with someone else's life." She left in silence. Later that evening, I got a text from her. A photo of Ashley sleeping on the couch, empty food boxes everywhere, a giant black stain on the wall behind her. The caption just read, "I hate you." I took a screenshot, smiled, and wrote back, "You're welcome." People say history repeats itself. I say it loops right up until you cut the string. It was a humid Thursday afternoon. The air conditioning in the office was working overtime, but we were all melting under the weight of month-end reports. Then, like clockwork, Crystal popped her head into our open workspace. "Y'all, I'm ordering milkshakes," she announced like she was opera. "My treat, who wants one?" 10 hands shot up. Mine didn't. Neither did Mia Lawrence's. Mia had just transferred to our department from HR. She was quiet, polite, and visibly pregnant. Maybe 3 months in. I recognized her instantly from my past life, and my stomach turned. Because in the life before, Crystal had pulled the same milkshake stunt. She forced me to pay for it, handed a large cold drink to Mia, who had politely declined, and 30 minutes later, Mia collapsed right in the office. The miscarriage was fast and brutal. I paid the price. Crystal said I paid because I placed the order. Mia's husband, Lucas, beat me in the parking lot and sued me for reckless endangerment. I lost $150,000 in settlement fees. And more than that, I lost my job, my dignity, my will to live. I wasn't going to let that loop come around again. This time, when Crystal turned to me with that sickly sweet grin and said, "Teresa, can you place the order on your phone?" Mine's acting weird. I smiled and lied through my teeth. "Sorry, Crystal, I'm stepping out for a call. Maybe just use your phone this time." Right on cue, my phone rang. It was my best friend, Lauren, calling me exactly as I had asked her to earlier. I grabbed the phone, waved at everyone, and strolled out of the office just as Crystal began grumbling. The second I was gone, the others insisted, "Just order them yourself, Crystal. Don't wait. We're dying here." And she did. She placed the order, with her own phone, her own account, her own name on the receipt. Perfect. 20 minutes later, I returned to find everyone happily sipping milkshakes, except Mia. She sat frozen at her desk, a soft vanilla drink melting on a napkin beside her. Her hands trembled. Then came the sweating. Then the gasping. She clutched her belly, eyes wide with pain, and slid off her chair with a scream. "Something's wrong. My baby," she cried out, then collapsed. Panic broke out. Phones scrambled. Chairs flipped. Someone called 911. I stood there, still as stone, reliving the same horror. Only this time, I wasn't the one holding the receipt. Mia was wheeled out on a stretcher, pale and silent. Lucas stormed into the office that evening like a bullet with teeth. And unlike last time, his target wasn't me, it was Crystal. "You fed my wife cold sugar while pregnant? What kind of psycho are you?" he shouted. Crystal tried to deny it. She said she wanted one. "I just offered." "She said no, and you pressured her. I'm suing your ass." Lucas's eyes were wild. His fists balled at his sides. I could see the boiling pain inside him. And Crystal, she cracked. Her hands flew up, eyes pleading. I didn't mean to hurt her. Everyone else wanted one. I didn't think it'd do any harm." "You didn't think," Lucas growled. "And now she's in a hospital bed bleeding." By the next day, Crystal was served with a civil lawsuit. Damages sought, $150,000 plus hospital bills. Deja vu. Except this time, the bullseye wasn't painted on me. Crystal was suspended from work. HR sent her home, pending review. Our manager pulled me aside and said, "Thank you for not getting involved in this mess, Teresa. You did the right thing." I nodded, hiding my smirk behind a polite sigh. Later that week, Crystal texted me, "Crystal, can you believe this is happening? Crystal, it was just a freaking milkshake." "Crystal, I thought you had my back." I didn't reply. Instead, I made myself a smoothie, curled up on my couch, and whispered, "History only repeats when you let it. There's something dangerous about a lie told too many times. It begins to sound like truth." And Crystal, she was the queen of repetition. It was 2 days after her suspension when she showed up at my apartment uninvited, standing at my doorstep with tired eyes and a smile she couldn't quite fake. "Teresa," she began with that breathy, broken voice, "can we talk?" I stepped aside, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted to finish this chapter for good. She sat on the couch like she was the victim in her own Greek tragedy. No makeup, hoodie, half-baked remorse in her voice. "You know, back then when I saved you," she started, "I never asked for anything. I just did what any decent person would." There it was, the card she always kept tucked in her sleeve. The "I saved your life, so you owe me everything" speech. I stayed silent. She looked up. "I mean, how could you stand by and let me get sued? After everything I've done for you." I tilted my head slightly. Done for me or to me? Her expression flickered. "Teresa, don't do this." "No," I said, my voice calm. "Let's do this. Let's talk about that day." Her shoulders stiffened. "What day?" "The day the glass panel fell." Silence. "You said you pushed me out of the way, that you saved me. You were even bleeding. I believed you," I continued. Until I remembered everything. I leaned forward slowly. "Funny thing is, Crystal, when someone actually saves your life, you remember their face, their voice, their hands." She blinked. "Problem is, the face I remember wasn't yours." Her eyes widened just a little. "You sure it wasn't me?" She whispered, "You saw my arm, the cut. I stayed at the hospital, You showed up at the hospital," I interrupted, "after the real person had already called the ambulance." She froze, that was it. Her mask didn't slip, it shattered. "I reviewed the building's security footage," I lied. "I saw him, a boy, a janitor intern, probably not even 20. He saw the glass falling, shoved me, and vanished before anyone noticed." She looked like a ghost, sweating, trembling. "That's how I knew, because you didn't flinch when I called him a boy. If you had actually saved me, you'd be screaming that you were the one." Crystal stared at me like a cornered animal. Then slowly her voice dropped. "You have no proof." "You're right," I said, standing up, "but I also have no debt." She blinked, confused. I smiled. "See, you never saved me. So I don't owe you a single damn thing. Not sympathy, not protection, and certainly not $150,000. Freedom is quiet. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or fanfare. It tiptoes in, soft as a breath, while your enemies self-destruct one by one." Crystal stopped showing up to work. HR never confirmed she was fired, but her name disappeared from the email directory. Her desk? Empty, just like her promises. But her problems? Oh, they were just getting started. It began with a text from my mom. "Mom, your Aunt Paula called me crying. Apparently Crystal's condo got trashed. Mom, like thousands of dollars in damage, black mold, graffiti, cigarette burns. Mom, she had to hire a whole cleanup crew." I stared at the message with a slow smile curling on my lips. Ashley Bloom, that cockroach in designer knockoffs. Turns out, after Crystal took her in out of compassion, Ashley went full feral, trash everywhere, stains on the walls, and according to one neighbor, a rotating door of strange men at all hours. My past life flashed before my eyes, the smell, the filth, the rage. And now, Crystal was the one scrubbing ketchup stains off the ceiling with bleach and regret. A week later, she accidentally sent me a photo meant for someone else. A picture of her living room, if you could still call it that. It looked like a frat house exploded inside a gas station bathroom. On the walls, black streaks. On the floor, garbage, everywhere. The message under the photo simply read, "I don't know what to do anymore." She tried to delete it, but too late, I had already saved it. Then I laughed so hard I almost spilled my tea. Then came the icing on the chaos cake, Lucas Myers. He didn't stop after the lawsuit. Oh no. That man had the wrath of a grieving father and the records to match. Lucas began stalking Crystal's family, Aunt Paula and Uncle Gary, demanding restitution for Mia's miscarriage. Apparently, he found out Crystal had transferred his $150,000 settlement money to her father to repay an old family loan. Big mistake. One night, according to Mom, Lucas kicked down their screen door, slapped Uncle Gary across the face, and threatened to sue them all if the money wasn't returned within a week. My phone rang off the hook that night. "Teresa." Aunt Paula sobbed through the speaker. "Can't you talk to him? Tell him it was all Crystal. You know she always meant well." I paused before answering. "You mean the same Crystal who used me to transfer money in your name? The same Crystal who let her friend trash my apartment?" "Silence, I'm sorry," I said. "But you raised her, now you clean up the mess." I hung up, and it felt amazing. Days turned into weeks. Crystal tried to push Ashley out, but Ashley played the sympathy card so hard you'd think she was auditioning for a soap opera. "She's my best friend." Crystal once cried to my mom in some desperate phone call. "But she's ruining my life." My mom only replied, "You let her in, honey." Meanwhile, at work, I brought strawberry shortcake to share with the team, homemade this time. Everyone thanked me, smiled at me, sat next to me. Crystal was just a name in a scandal now. And that's when I realized her fall wasn't loud. It was silent, lonely, and exactly what she deserved. Late one night, I got one last message from Crystal. Crystal, I can't believe how cold you've become. I stared at the screen, then typed, Me, I'm not cold, I'm clean, you should try it sometime. Some endings don't need a push. They just need time and a little alcohol. Crystal hadn't spoken to me in weeks. Not since the lawsuit, the trashed condo, or the night her dad got slapped in his own living room. I figured she was either hiding or unraveling. Turns out it was both. One Friday night, she texted out of nowhere. Crystal, wanna go get drinks? Just you and me. Like old times. I stared at my phone. Was she seriously inviting me out for margaritas like we hadn't just watched her entire life burn to the ground? I typed, I've got a headache. Try Ashley. 10 minutes later, she replied, Crystal, fine, that was all I needed to know. I parked 2 blocks from Denny's, the all-night diner she used to love, and waited. My windows were down. Summer air thick and quiet. I had no intention of joining them. I just wanted to see it for myself. At 10:47 p.m., Crystal and Ashley stumbled out of the diner like 2 washed-up prom queens. Loud. Laughing too hard, wobbling on cheap heels, Ashley looked bloated. Crystal looked broken. I watched as they turned the corner into a poorly lit side street. That's when I saw him. Lucas Myers. Standing under a broken street lamp in a black hoodie, hands in his pockets, eyes locked on them like a predator who had waited patiently for his hour. I didn't flinch, didn't call out, didn't move. I just watched. They disappeared into the alley. For a while it was quiet. Then came the scream. It was Ashley, high-pitched, hysterical, cut short. I didn't look away. Someone ran out a minute later, a man, not Lucas, screaming, "Call the cops, someone's dead." Oh my God. Sirens came fast, lights even faster. But I already knew. I knew before the gurneys rolled out, before the coroner zipped the bags, before the headlines the next day said, 2 women found dead behind Denny's. Possible homicide in ongoing civil dispute. Crystal had begged to escape consequences all her life. She begged when Uncle Gary lost the money. Begged when Ashley destroyed her home. Begged when Lucas sued her. But fate didn't deal in pleas, it dealt in payment, and she was overdue. Back at home, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the floor. I should have felt triumphant, victorious, safe. Instead, I felt hollow. I hadn't lifted a finger, but I had let it happen. I had watched it happen. And yet, I couldn't regret it. Because if she had lived, she would have done it all again. To me, to someone else. Crystal didn't die because I hated her. She died because she couldn't stop hurting people, and this time she ran out of shields. My mom got the call from Aunt Paula the next morning. There was screaming, wailing, accusations, but not for me. For once in my life, I wasn't the one who got blamed. And I wasn't about to volunteer. Peace doesn't roar. It hums, soft and steady, like a lullaby you didn't know you needed. It had been 3 months since Crystal's body was pulled from behind that Denny's. 3 months since Ashley Bloom made the evening news. 3 months since I stopped looking over my shoulder. No one ever asked me what I knew. No detectives showed up at my door. No family member demanded answers. Because in the end, no one ever suspects the quiet girl of surviving. I left my job not long after the incident. The office was stale. Every hallway held echoes of Crystal's voice, her laughter, her guilt, her lies. I didn't want any of it anymore. I found a new position at a nonprofit in downtown Sacramento. Same salary, half the stress. My manager wore sneakers to meetings and called us a team without sounding fake. It felt human. I started sleeping in. I made French toast for breakfast. I began watering plants and reading again. For the first time in both of my lives, I felt like I was living my life. Not reacting, not shrinking, not cleaning up after someone else's mess, just being. One Sunday morning, I took my parents to tour our new condo. 4 bedrooms, a small garden, room for quiet, room for light. My mom cried in the foyer. "I still can't believe this is ours," she whispered, hugging me tight. "And that you did all this, by yourself." I squeezed her back. I had help, I said quietly, "just not the kind you think." People talk a lot about closure like it's something that arrives in an envelope, sealed, official, final. But for me, it came in moments. Like waking up and not checking my phone to see if Crystal had texted, or unlocking my front door without wondering who might be inside, or standing in the aisle of the grocery store, choosing strawberry jam and not hearing someone behind me say, "That's too expensive, get the store brand instead." My silence wasn't weakness anymore, it was power. Sometimes I think about that boy, the intern who actually saved